Darrin, what is a sustainable aviation biofuel? I thought planes just flew on kerosene.
Well, kerosene, so there's biokerosene and then there's fossil fuel kerosene is one way to talk about it. About a decade ago, the only thing that was possible for aviation technically and supply chain wise was fossil-based kerosene. And owing to concerns around climate, as well as the need to improve the technical performance of our fuels, we started looking very carefully at the opportunity for biomass to fuel our industry. That turned out to be a very positive technical outcome. So about a decade ago, the first aviation renewable fuel flights occurred, and that retired the technical question that can this happen. We knew it technically could happen, and we knew that the fuels were technically superior. But then the question is, well, where are the supplies going to come from? And that really comes down to a question of are biofuels going to be sustainable economically, socially, and environmentally? And obviously in Europe and other places, there were biofuel industries already in existence to supply ground transportation. And a lot of the dialogue happened here in the EU and in the US and many other places about the sustainability of biofuels. It's the case that biofuels can be sustainable and a positive outcome, and they can also present lots of problems. So it really depends on how you do them. So aviation's efforts on renewable fuels really came of age in the crucible of the questioning of biofuels and whether they're a good thing or not. So our strategy was set in the middle of that era, and we focused on very high sustainability options that don't compete for land use with things that are otherwise used, land is used for, and fuels that are high enough, technically capable enough to supply our industry. So today where we're at is the ground transportation industry is rapidly electrifying, so their need for liquid fuel of technical performance than fossil kerosenes.
So Darrin, what does sustainable mean?
Really good question. Sustainability in terms of aviation biofuels was something we thought about very early on in our contemplation of initiating this effort within the industry. It's easy to say the word sustainability, but actually following that and sort of walking the talk is something we realized was going to be really important for our industry. So early on in our efforts, we talked to people a lot smarter about this industry and our supply chain than us. That included many NGOs, civil society organizations, governments from around the globe, and asked them that question. What does sustainable fuels mean? And how do we go about ensuring the sustainability of our future supply chains? And the answer came back pretty resoundingly clear that there was a global process set in motion at that time in the middle part of the 2000s by people from across civil society that were trying to answer exactly that question and turn that into a certified standard that could be used by governments. And that is the Roundtable on Sustainable Biomaterials process and the standard that came from it. So the important thing about the Roundtable on Sustainable Biomaterials is that it's the standard itself very robust and complete, but it also involved a lot of stakeholders from developing countries, developed countries, global north, global south. Everybody who has an interest was invited to provide insight to define what means sustainability for biofuels. And that culminated in a now operating standard that the Roundtable on Sustainable Biomaterials has in place. And it's generally considered at the global gold standard. So when NGOs like WWF or Natural Resources Defense Council or National Wildlife Federation who are very concerned about the sustainability of biofuels have benchmarked the global sustainable fuels certification systems, RSB generally comes out on top as the most robust and rigorous one. And we made an early decision in this effort about a decade ago to support that process, and many of our customers, the airlines who are using these fuels now, are working through that process to get their fuel supplies certified through the RSB standard. Not entirely, not everybody, but the majority of them. And we thought that was very important to have that process, a very robust process to be guiding our industry in this nascent supply chain.